When you think of a national animal, you probably picture something majestic. The American bald eagle, the Russian bear, the British lion, they're symbols of power, of grace, of dominance. So it's always felt a little strange that France, a country that prides itself on philosophy and fine wine, is represented by a rooster, the loud, slightly arrogant bird that struts around the barnyard screaming at the sun. It's not exactly a symbol of imperial strength. In fact, Napoleon Bonaparte hated it for that very reason. He said it had no strength and couldn't possibly represent his empire. And yet, the rooster stuck around. The French comedian Coluche might have explained it best. He once joked that the rooster was the perfect emblem for France because it's the only animal that still sings with its feet in the shit. That one crude line, this image of defiant pride in the middle of a mess, might just be the key to understanding the entire French national character. So we're diving deep into the French national character today, starting with that, most surprising of symbols, the Gallic rooster. It's loud, a bit arrogant, certainly not majestic in the classical sense of an eagle or a lion. It's the barnyard boss, not an imperial one, yet it endures as this incredibly potent, unofficial symbol. How did a common bird become so deeply ingrained in the psyche of a nation like France?
It's truly fascinating, isn't it? How a symbol that appears so humble, maybe even a little comical to some, can evolve into such a powerful, deeply woven representation of a nation. This speaks volumes about the French character itself, suggesting a national identity that isn't built solely on, let's say, traditional notions of grandeur and overt power, but on something much more nuanced, something perhaps centered on resilience and a unique kind of defiant pride.
Right.
While many nations choose symbols of overwhelming might, the soaring eagle, the roaring lion, France, has embraced a symbol that is very much of the earth, connected to everyday life, yet projects this indomitable spirit.
And it's not just us wondering about this choice. Even Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who literally built empires and understood the critical importance of projecting absolute power. He wanted nothing to do with this bird as a national emblem. He considered it weak.
Yeah, he really did.
Believing it lacked the strength to possibly represent his grand imperial vision.
Exactly. For him, a symbol of a nation, especially one aspiring to dominate Europe, needed to command respect through sheer might. Think about the eagles he famously adopted for his legions, a direct link back to the powerful Roman Empire.
Of course.
The rooster, in his view, was just, a farm animal, completely unfit to stand for a burgeoning empire. He supposedly remarked, "The cock has no strength. It does not represent France." You can almost hear his exasperation, can't you?
Definitely.
And indeed, Napoleon's disdain directly challenges our ingrained assumptions about what national symbols should be. We're accustomed to expecting these imposing, fierce creatures that evoke power and perhaps a degree of fear in adversaries.
Like the British lion, the Russian bear.
Precisely. Or even the American bald eagle. These are creatures of the wild, often apex predators or birds of prey, chosen to embody untamed power and majesty. The rooster, by contrast, is a domesticated bird. It's a familiar sight in any rural landscape, more associated with the farmyard than the battlefield. But its enduring presence, despite Napoleon's efforts to supplant it, suggests that French identity finds its strength not in overwhelming brute force, but in something else entirely. It implies a different kind of power, a strength rooted in persistence, a certain stubbornness maybe, and a resilient, defiant spirit that refuses to be overshadowed.
And this brings us straight back to that incredibly crude yet, profoundly insightful joke by the legendary French comedian Coluche. He famously quipped that the rooster was the perfect emblem for France because it's the only animal that still sings with its feet in the shit.
That line.
That line, it hits hard, doesn't it? It's not about being pristine, perfect, or untouchable. It's about a raw, unyielding pride and a sheer refusal to be silenced, even when you're knee-deep in a deeply unpleasant, undignified, or challenging situation.
Yes, it perfectly captures a core essence of French defiance, resilience, and pride. The ability to maintain one's spirit, voice, and even a sense of self-importance in the face of adversity, no matter how messy the circumstances. This powerful image highlights the rooster's unofficial but deeply felt status, starkly contrasting it with the formally recognized, often majestic national emblems you see in other European nations.
The lions and eagles we mentioned.
Exactly. Those nations often opt for symbols of imperial strength and unblemished glory, but France, through the rooster, embraces a different narrative. It's one that is about enduring, persisting, and even finding a voice amidst chaos and contradiction. It speaks to a certain pragmatic acceptance of reality, perhaps, combined with an unwavering sense of national identity.
And this defiant spirit isn't just, encapsulated in a joke or a sports logo. You're saying it's woven right into the language.
Oh, absolutely. The rooster's essence is deeply woven into the very fabric of everyday French language and culture through a myriad of common idioms. It really demonstrates how deeply it permeates the national consciousness. Take, for instance, vivre comme, pâte.
Literally, to live like a rooster in dough. That sounds messy.
Huh. It does sound messy, but it actually means to be in clover, or living comfortably and luxuriously. It's used to describe someone who has everything they could wish for, perhaps pampered and indulged. It speaks to a certain French appreciation for comfort, for the good life, a quiet sense of well-being.
So it's not just about battling through adversity, but also enjoying the fruits of success. What other insights can these linguistic nuggets give us?
Precisely. Then you have le coq de village.
The cock of the walk.
Exactly, the cock of the walk, the dominant figure, the boss of the village or a particular group. This reflects a local, often hierarchical dominance, a sense of being in charge of one's immediate surroundings, asserting one's presence and authority within a defined community. And, quite humorously, there's passer du coq à l'âne.
To pass from the rooster to the donkey? What does that mean?
It means to skip abruptly from one subject to another in conversation, often without a clear logical connection, like jumping around.
Okay, I think I know people who do that.
Right. It points to a certain conversational fluidity, or perhaps a delightful lack of linear progression in French discourse, where tangential thoughts are often embraced.
That one sounds like a few conversations I've had myself. It really captures a specific kind of conversational hopscotching. So the rooster isn't just a mascot, it's a character, a verb, a warning. It's truly embedded in the French mindset, far beyond any official decree or constitutional endorsement.
Absolutely. Consider le bémol d'un cocorico.
Okay.
While cocorico is the French equivalent of cock-a-doodle-doo, adding bémol, which are flat notes in music, signifying a downside or caution, turns this into a phrase reminding you not to celebrate too soon, not to be overly optimistic, or to be cautious about future success.
Ah, a bit of Gallic caution. Don't count your chickens or roosters.
Exactly. It injects a touch of realism into the exuberance of a crow. Similarly, sans crier cocorico means without crowing or without being too chauvinistic.
So be proud, but don't shout about it.
Pretty much. It implies a quiet confidence, a pride that doesn't need to be loudly trumpeted or boastful. It suggests a self-awareness about national pride that is strong, but not necessarily ostentatious. Finally, se lever au chant de coq, to rise with the lark, or very early, connects the rooster directly to the rhythm of daily life and a sense of diligence and hard work.
Right, the early bird or rooster.
It's almost like the rooster is a silent, omnipresent character in the French psyche, guiding their expressions, their humor, their very way of seeing the world. It's a testament to how cultural symbols, when their meaning isn't rigidly fixed, can become incredibly flexible and adaptable tools for a shared cultural understanding.
Allowing for individual interpretation while maintaining a common form.
Precisely. Each phrase adds another nuanced layer to the rooster's symbolic meaning, allowing it to represent defiance, comfort, dominance, caution, and even diligence, embodying a complex national spirit.
So the rooster embodies this defiant spirit, this tenacity. But if the rooster is the unofficial, resilient heart of France, then the Tricolor Flag, that's certainly its tumultuous, very official face. We see flags everywhere as symbols of nationhood, but France's flag has a story as colorful and, well, often contradictory as its own history.
Oh, definitely.
It's not just a collection of pretty colors, it's a living testament to a nation constantly redefining itself.
Indeed, national flags are potent instruments of political life, signaling identity and sovereignty. They're far more than mere decorative expressions of patriotism. They are treated as sacred objects, frequently protected by law from defiling and desecration, embodying the very essence of a nation.
Wow, sacred objects.
And the French tricolor in particular showcases a fascinating and often contradictory evolution. It embodies both revolutionary fervor and periods of stark suppression. Its journey is a complex narrative of national identity, a visual record of a nation's dramatic self-reinventions.
It's almost mind-boggling to think that the iconic French flag, which has flown over so much revolutionary and imperial history, actually drew its original inspiration from the Netherlands.
It's true. From a resistance movement there. It wasn't just pulled out of thin air, a brand new design for a new republic. The Dutch Prinsen flag, with its orange, white, and blue, served as the original model.
The prince's flag.
Yes. And this flag emerged as a powerful symbol of resistance and liberty during their grueling 80-year war for independence from Spain, a struggle that stretched from 1568 to 1648.
Centuries before the French Revolution.
Exactly. That foundational inspiration highlights a shared historical thread of fighting against oppression and asserting self-determination. It links two seemingly disparate nations through a common symbolic language of liberty and popular will, even if the specific colors were later adapted to France's own revolutionary narrative, blue and red for Paris, white for the monarchy initially.
Fascinating link. But the French flag story wasn't exactly smooth sailing after that, was it?
Not at all. What's truly remarkable about the tricolor is its tumultuous historical evolution, reflecting a nation forged in constant struggle and reinvention. This flag, which we now see as so stable and permanent, was actually abolished 3 times throughout its history.
3 times?
Yes, and it underwent minor modifications in 1794, 1814-15, and 1830. Perhaps one of the most striking periods was from 1814 to 1830, following Napoleon's definitive defeat and the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy.
After Waterloo.
Right. During this time, the flag of France was predominantly white.
Just white, no blue, no red.
Just the plain white of the Bourbon standard, the symbol of the royal house, and the reinstitution of the white cockade worn by royalists. It vividly illustrates a period of explicit suppression of revolutionary ideals, a deliberate attempt by the returning monarchy to erase the republican symbols that had become so potent. It was a visual declaration. The monarchy was back.
But the French people, with their famous revolutionary spirit, wouldn't let it stay white for long, would they? The desire for liberty, for republican ideals, it must have simmered.
It certainly did, eventually boiling over again in the July Revolution of 1830. This was a short but decisive uprising against the Bourbon monarchy, and it led to the reintroduction of the tricolor by King Louis Philippe, the Citizen King.
The Citizen King, right.
This was a significant concession to the popular will, a symbolic return to the colors of liberty and the spirit of 1789. It was a sign that the monarchy, if it was to survive, had to acknowledge its revolutionary past.
But the story doesn't end there, does it? There was 1848.
Correct. The Revolution of 1848, which brought about the Second Republic, saw yet another dramatic turn. There was a vocal and powerful faction, particularly among Parisian workers and socialists, who proposed a plain red flag as the new national flag.
A red flag symbolizing
Radical social revolution and the blood of the working class. For a tense period of 2 weeks, a red rosette was even physically attached to the top of the tricolor.
Wow, a compromise.
A temporary compromise, yes, to appease the radical elements and symbolize the new, more socially conscious republic. This brief but intense episode really highlights the profound internal debates and conflicting viewpoints embedded in the flag's history, a continuous tug-of-war between different revolutionary factions and political ideologies.
Moderates versus radicals.
Exactly. And it's astonishing that, despite these chaotic origins and periods of profound disagreement, where the very colors of the nation were fiercely contested, there have been no official modifications to the French national flag since 1848. It suggests a hard-won, if somewhat uneasy, consensus was finally reached.
This raises a fascinating point about national identity. How does a nation consolidate its sense of self around a symbol that has been so consistently contested, abolished, and reimagined throughout its history? It's not a straightforward journey.
It's an excellent question, and it suggests a unique capacity within the French national character to embrace, rather than shy away from, its own internal contradictions and the constant renegotiation of its identity. For France, the flag doesn't represent a singular, unchanging past, but rather a dynamic, ever-evolving narrative of political struggle and social transformation. This is a profound example of what scholars call rupture and discontinuity, a path often marked by abrupt breaks and dramatic shifts, reflecting a nation that isn't afraid to constantly redefine itself.
So the flag carries the weight of multiple, sometimes conflicting interpretations.
Precisely, which allows it to remain relevant and resonant across different eras and political viewpoints. It highlights that nationhood for France is less about a fixed entity and more about a continuous, dynamic process of self-definition, often through vigorous debate.
So Bastille Day, July 14th, the official celebration of the French nation. And on that day, the tricolor is everywhere. It's a truly powerful sight, covering the Champs-Élysées on official buildings carried by military guards, and that huge flag hanging inside the Arc de Triomphe over the tomb of the unknown soldier. It's spectacular.
It is a spectacular, almost overwhelming display of national pride.
But there's a deeper, more complex story woven into that celebration, isn't there?
Absolutely. Bastille Day is officially designated as the commemoration of the Fête de la Fédération in 1790.
Which was more about unity.
Yes, a tempered celebration of national unity, just 1 year after the storming of the Bastille. However, in the popular imagination, it also strongly commemorates the popular fervor of the storming of the Bastille itself in 1789. And here lies a fascinating irony and complexity within French national identity.
Which is?
Bastille Day parades, which originally celebrated the overthrow of monarchy and the very period when the king was guillotined.
Right, the revolution's height.
Can now be performed in the presence of royalty. For example, the King of Spain recently took part in these ceremonies.
Wow, that is ironic.
It demonstrates a kind of national amnesia, a collective forgetting, or perhaps better put, a selective remembering. The Third Republic brilliantly used this to create its own invented tradition of unity. It emphasizes the revolution's promise of universal liberty and equality over its internal divisions and bloodshed, implicitly forgetting the violent reality of the terror that followed the revolution.
So they focus on the ideals, not the messy reality.
Exactly. It's a remarkable ability to selectively interpret history to serve a current national narrative of cohesion.
It's incredible. The French flag isn't just a piece of cloth. It's a canvas painted with centuries of rebellion, compromise, and maybe even a touch of willful forgetting. It tells a story of constant reinvention, a nation that has repeatedly torn itself down and rebuilt itself, yet always returns to these core symbols.
It truly reflects a national identity that is uniquely comfortable with its own complexities and ongoing historical debate.
Unlike nations that might seek a more sanitized version of their past.
Perhaps. This willingness to live with and even celebrate historical contradictions is a defining characteristic of France. The flag embodies this by carrying the weight of multiple, sometimes conflicting interpretations. This is a crucial element of France's ambivalent notion of nationhood, a national identity that thrives on, rather than shies away from, its own deep complexities and historical debates, continually renegotiating its past to define its present.
Okay, so we've talked about the rooster's unofficial but powerful status, its roots in language, and the flag's turbulent journey. But there's one arena where that Gallic rooster truly shines and becomes a universally recognized emblem of France for, well, billions around the world. Sports.
Ah, yes, the sporting stage.
It seems like the barnyard boss found its true calling on the global stage, becoming the unofficial mascot of French athletic pride.
This is a prime example of what scholars call active nationalism playing out.
Active nationalism.
Yes, where symbols aren't just passive pictures or historical artifacts, but are actively used and performed by people in new, ritualistic ways. You see it clearly in fans painting flags on their faces or wearing national emblems on their chests during major competitions.
Like the World Cup or the Olympics.
Exactly. The sports arena provides a modern, highly visible, and emotionally charged platform for the display of national identity. And the rooster, in particular, thrives in this environment. It's a powerful contemporary manifestation of how a symbol can gain popular legitimacy and recognition even without formal constitutional backing.
So sports gave it the recognition, politics didn't.
In a way, yes. Its ubiquity in sports has solidified its status far beyond any official decree.
It's truly incredible the pervasive presence of the Gallic rooster on French national sports teams, especially in football and rugby. You see it proudly emblazoned on jerseys.
Everywhere.
For everything, from the World Cup to the Six Nations Rugby Championship. I remember the French national football team's jersey for the 2015 World Cup, complete with that defiant rooster front and center.
A very prominent symbol.
This omnipresence on the international stage, through these incredibly popular and globally televised sports, has undeniably solidified its national recognition in the popular imagination. It has achieved a level of universal awareness and acceptance that political decrees or historical documents could never quite provide.
Absolutely.
It's almost as if the roar of the stadium, the chants of Allez les Bleus, and the global spotlight of sports have given the rooster the official stamp of approval that politics never quite could.
That's a great way to put it. It's become an inseparable part of France's athletic brand, recognized instantly across continents.
So, when we connect this to the bigger picture,
Symbols like the rooster in sports provide a unifying focus. They raise collective consciousness, a feeling of who we are on a global scale. This is more than just fandom or a fleeting passion. It's almost like a modern form of secular religion at play.
secular religion. How so?
Think about it. Collective emotions, rituals, symbols invested with almost sacred meaning, even outside of traditional faith. The intensity of a major sporting event can feel profoundly spiritual for many fans.
I can see that.
And the symbols become icons of that shared experience. The rooster, with its connotations of defiant pride and resilience, just like Coluche's joke suggested, helps cultivate a distinct and proud athletic identity for France on the international stage.
So the team embodies that singing with feet in the muck idea.
In a sense, yes. The team's performance, their successes, and even their defeats under the symbol contribute to a narrative of national character that resonates deeply with the wider population. When the team plays, wins, or loses, it feels like the nation itself is doing so, and the rooster becomes the embodiment of that shared fate. It represents the spirit of fighting on, even when facing formidable opponents.
Ultimately, France's story, as told through its symbols from the defiant rooster to the tumultuous tricolor, it isn't about a clean, linear progression, is it? It's about a nation that seems to thrive on complexity, debate, and even its own historical contradictions.
Indeed. The French path to nationhood has been consistently characterized by rupture and discontinuity.
Revolutions, empires, republics, back and forth.
Exactly, rather than a smooth evolutionary progression. This is manifested in an ambivalent notion of nationhood that actively embraces complexity. Unlike some nations that strive for a perfectly consistent, idealized narrative, France seems to accept and even integrate its periods of intense ideological conflict and shifting allegiances into its national story.
Which makes its identity incredibly rich, but maybe perplexing to outsiders.
Perhaps. It's a nation comfortable with its own internal debates.
And we can see this willingness to embrace complexity even in the personification of the Republic itself, Marianne. She started out as liberty.
Yes, in the Revolutionary era, as the bold allegory of liberty, often depicted wearing a Phrygian cap, a symbol of freedom from slavery under the Roman Republic.
The red cap.
Right. But over time, her link to the universal value of liberty became increasingly ambiguous and even ignored in favor of other meanings.
How did that happen?
Well, what's particularly striking about Marianne is how the proliferation of her image through a phenomenon known as statuomania, literally statuomania, in the late 19th century.
Statuomania.
Yes. It paradoxically led to a banalization of her meaning, with busts of Marianne popping up in town halls across the country and her image plastered on official documents and stamps.
She became commonplace.
Exactly. She transitioned from a radical emblem of revolutionary freedom to a ubiquitous, almost bureaucratic symbol. As an allegory of the French state, Marianne became increasingly associated with order and governance, with the established republic, rather than with its insurgent, liberating origins.
So the very figure meant to embody liberty morphed into a symbol of state control. That's a pretty fascinating twist, almost like the revolution settling down and becoming the establishment.
It's a profound example of how national symbols can evolve, be reinterpreted, and even seemingly betray their original intent as they are adopted and repurposed by successive regimes seeking to legitimize themselves.
And another prime example of France's embrace of contradiction must be its powerful national anthem, La Marseillaise.
Oh, absolutely. This hymn had a truly fascinating dual function during the Vichy period of World War II.
Dual function? How?
It was simultaneously used as a nationalist anthem by the collaborationist Vichy regime and as a symbol of resistance against them and the Nazis.
How could it be both?
Well, despite being formally forbidden by the German occupation authorities in the occupied zone of France, the Vichy regime, in the so-called Free Zone, continued to use La Marseillaise officially. They largely ignored its revolutionary origins and Republican associations.
Conveniently.
Right. Instead, Vichy leaders presented it as a hymn for an eternal French nation, selectively focusing on lines that emphasized patriotism and the protection of the homeland. Like the sixth stanza, often called the Marshal's Couplet, which begins, "Sacred love of the fatherland, lead, support our avenging arms."
Ah, lines that suited Marshal Pétain's message.
Precisely. That stanza perfectly suited his rhetoric of national renewal through traditional values and loyalty to him as the benevolent leader.
So they were essentially cherry-picking parts of the anthem to fit their own authoritarian narrative, while completely ignoring its revolutionary heart. And it wasn't just about reinterpreting old songs, was it? Vichy also introduced entirely new anthems.
Yes. The regime actively introduced a number of original songs. Many were taught in schools and performed by children across the country. These were overtly nationalistic and propagandistic, often hailing Pétain as the great defender and savior of the nation, cultivating an image of a benevolent father figure.
Wow.
This contrast highlights how a single piece of music like La Marseillaise could hold such opposing political interpretations. reflecting the deep ideological divisions within the nation's past and present. It speaks to the incredible malleability of symbols.
And let's not forget Bastille Day itself. We touched on it earlier, but it's a masterclass in what you called national amnesia. While it's the official commemoration of the Republic's formation, it implicitly demonstrates a profound forgetting of the violent reality of the terror. You won't find parades acknowledging the guillotine or the brutal purges that followed the initial revolutionary fervor.
Exactly. Bastille Day represents a powerful means for the Third Republic to create its own mythic past. It emphasizes unity over division, deliberately glossing over the darker, more violent aspects of the revolution.
A selective remembrance.
Yes, prioritizing a narrative of consensus, liberty, and national cohesion over the brutal realities of internal conflict. This deliberate shaping of historical memory helps to maintain a sense of national unity and purpose despite the foundational ruptures in France's past. It's a pragmatic approach to nation building, you could say.
Here's a truly astonishing fact that underscores this idea of an invented or constructed national identity. At the time of the French Revolution, late 18th century, a staggering 75% of French citizens didn't speak French as their mother tongue.
It's quite something, isn't it?
Imagine that. A country defined globally by its language, yet 3/4 of its people didn't speak it natively when the revolution kicked off.
They spoke a multitude of regional dialects and languages: Breton, Occitan, Basque, Alsatian German, and many more.
It just adds another layer to this invented national identity. French was a language imposed and promoted by the state over time as a unifying tool.
Exactly. Rather than being the pre-existing unifying force it's often perceived to be today, it's a powerful illustration of the constructed nature of national identity, where shared culture and political experience are actively developed and propagated over time. The idea of a unified French language and culture was a deliberate project of the Republic.
A testament to the power of state building through education, administration,
And propaganda, yes, in shaping a common identity.
Speaking of historical narratives, there's this incredible image from an old film about Napoleon using a French flag as a sail in a desperate moment.
Yes. Battling against the odds. It sounds incredibly dramatic, doesn't it? A powerful symbol of leadership and ingenuity under pressure.
You can picture it, can't you? The tricolor, flapping as a makeshift sail, embodying French resilience.
It does sound incredibly dramatic.
Yeah.
A truly cinematic moment. However,
Uh-oh.
that powerful visual was actually Abel Gance's invention for his famous 1927 silent epic Napoleon.
It didn't actually happen.
Not historically, no. It was a brilliant cinematic flourish designed to heighten the drama, emphasize Napoleon's heroic, resourceful image, and visually link him directly to the nation's symbol in a desperate situation. This shows how powerfully myths and symbols are intertwined with history. They often persist in time and diffuse in space, meaning they spread and remain popular precisely because they help group members feel a common fate or shared identity.
Even if the origin is fabricated.
Exactly. These invented narratives serve a crucial role in shaping collective memory and providing inspirational touchstones.
So history is sometimes what we want it to be or what makes a better story, and it's not just grand historical narratives that are shaped by this complex past. Even something as simple as a greeting on a Parisian street.
Absolutely. Think about the ritual of saying bonjour before any interaction in France, no matter how urgent the request or brief the encounter.
It's essential, right?
Essential.
Yeah.
To bypass it is almost instantly to be branded an ill-mannered brute. This seemingly polite custom is actually a revolutionary ritual introduced after 1789.
Revolutionary.
It was brought in to counter the king's practice of acknowledging only members and guests of his court. By obliging everyone to offer a formal greeting, it democratized social interaction, asserting equality among citizens.
So everyone gets a bonjour.
Everyone, from the highest to the lowest, was now owed the same basic courtesy. It's a tiny echo of liberté, égalité, fraternité, and daily life.
So even a simple hello is a tiny echo of the French Revolution. It's history in action every single day. And that also extends to how people interact on a more personal level, doesn't it? The privacy thing.
Indeed. There's also the pervasive French tendency to avoid asking indiscreet questions about private life. It contrasts sharply with, say, Anglo-Saxon customs, where personal questions might signal engagement or an attempt to build rapport.
Right. Americans might ask, what do you do? Almost immediately.
Whereas the French often feel invaded if conversations turn too personal too quickly. They prefer to maintain a clearer distinction between public and private spheres. This subtle social custom is arguably a legacy of valuing individual privacy and autonomy, perhaps stemming from a post-revolutionary desire to protect one's personal sphere from state intrusion or excessive social scrutiny.
Another reinforcement of individual liberty.
Possibly. These everyday habits are deeply ingrained, showcasing how even the smallest social customs can be rooted in significant historical shifts and profound national values.
This complex interplay of history, symbols, and daily life truly demonstrates that French national identity is not static. It is continuously renegotiated.
Yes, and subject to change in an ever-evolving world.
France constantly reinterprets its past and its symbols to define its present and future, embracing its internal debates and contradictions as integral parts of its character.
This makes it a nation of profound depth, where every symbol tells a layered story, reflecting its ambivalent notion of nationhood.
What a deep dive into France and its fascinating symbols. It seems the French character, embodied by that singing rooster, truly embraces the messiness, the contradictions, and the constant evolution of what it means to be a nation. It's a powerful reminder that national identity is rarely simple, but often all the more interesting for its complexities.
It certainly shows us that symbols are not just static representations, are they? They're dynamic reflections of a nation's ongoing conversation with itself, its history, and its place in the world. They reveal how a nation collectively understands who it is, not as a fixed entity, but as a living, evolving story, always in dialogue with its own past and future.